Hey there YouTube, this is Shim4306, and I'm very excited to bring you this review of a cardboard box. Now, just kidding. You can see here, Flying Bear, which is, by the way, an awesome name for a company. Because if you're gonna have a bear, might as well make it fly. Anyway, you might be able to see here, the label says it is a Laserman. So if you couldn't guess, I was contacted by Flying Bear and they saw my Atomstack laser cutting video and they liked it so much that they wanted to send me their model, which has a number of advanced features that I think I am going to like a lot, but we'll get to that in a sec. So yeah, this is their Laserman model. I'm just going to quickly go through what's included in it. This assembly looks like it's going to take a little while, so I'm going to do that on my own time. I'm not going to bore you guys with it, but let's just get into this one-handedly. So everything's packed really well. We have a user manual. We have what appears to be a parts inspection sheet. So QC, good. We have the laser module itself. Ooh, pretty. Now this is a 5.5 watt model, so about on par, the same average as the Atomstack M40 that I have. We'll get to the other additional features, but one thing that I really like is they include a drag chain. So that's one of the things I didn't really like about the Atomstack. The wires, you're kind of left to manage the wiring on your own. There is no included drag chain. This is really nice, so I'm really happy about that. We have some protection glasses. Obviously, all these laser cutters use very similar construction in terms of like the V-slot beams and whatnot. So yeah, you have it here. Looks like it goes to 440 millimeters. So that's the dimension of one of the axes. We have a bunch of goodies. I can already see a bunch of stuff. Some kind of markers to mark stuff, a USB drive. This does have USB, SD, as well as Wi-Fi. So there are 3 ways you can connect your computer to this and send images over in order for it to cut. See, like a little dog tag looking thing. That's interesting. I see some wiring. There are limit switches on this, so that's another plus. Anyway, I see some pieces of wood and a brush of some description. But yeah, additionally, we have this kind of corrugated tubing to manage the rest of the wiring. Not all of it is carried via drag chain. I believe only one of the axes has a drag chain. The other one going to the laser head itself just has this tubing. Just better than nothing. And we have all our fasteners here. Tons of fasteners. We have some metal brackets, probably the feet or something like that. And we have some plastic. And we have some kind of plastic piece here. Not too sure. Let's just take off the first layer in the lasagna that is the Flying Bear. Okay, so here we have the biggest feature I'm excited about, ironically enough, is this guy, which is, if I can get it out, it's a ventilation fan. So this has its own, I believe it even has like a HEPA filter you can attach to the bottom there, but this will, that's 3D printed. Very interesting. Anyway, this is a fan that hooks up to a tube that goes to the laser head, so it'll suck up as much of the fumes as reasonably possible that it can, and pass it through like a filter that attaches to the bottom here. So that is fantastic. I've heard that it's not perfect, but it helps a lot apparently. So we'll see how effective that is. I'm really excited on that. And the other big feature is it actually has a full touchscreen color screen interface. So that's how you select the models on your SD card. And additionally, in the back here, you probably can't see yet, but it has flame detection. So if something catches fire while you're cutting, it will automatically shut down and beep and give you a warning. So yeah, all useful features. We have what appears to be one of... Oh yeah, another thing that I forgot to mention. This has a roller attachment that they include with this model. So you can cut laser etch or cut things that are cylindrical or round. So that's really cool. I'm gonna see if I can do a mug or something like that. We have our power supply, which, just looking at this, is 12 volts, 4 amps. So pretty beefy, 48 watts. We have a stepper motor, which that looks kind of small. I'm wondering if that's for the rotating carousel bit. We have, oh, these are the feet probably. And we have the other axis of motor for it, and pretty much the entire axis that runs all the way down, and all the wires. Looks like another stepper motor here too. So one of these is going to be X, one of them is going to be Y probably. And yeah, pretty much, what is this? Oh, this is the filter. So it actually does come with a filter. It's a strap to the bottom of this, so nice. Let's see what's under this. Answer, nothing. Nothing is under that. It's only a 2-layer lasagna. Oh well, I've got all this to assemble. This is going to take me quite a while. So I'm gonna get this all assembled, and then I will walk you guys through general things that I feel about the assembly process, pros, cons, etc., etc. But let me actually get this all together. This is going to take me a few hours, probably. I don't know. It might take me like an hour maximum, but yeah, we'll see. I'll tell you guys exactly how long it took me. Okay, I'll be honest. It took me longer than I thought it would have. So the instructions are actually, they're not horrible. We just go through real quick here. I mean, the pictures are fine. The only problem I have is they call out the size of the screws in the instructions. The bags are unmarked, and yeah, I could have actually measured and stuff, but it happened a number of times where I used the wrong length screw or whatever, and I had to end up going backtracking and swapping different length screws that I had mixed up where to put them. Anyway, it took me about an hour and a half. I'm pretty sure if I didn't do all those like stupid, silly mistakes, and that's on me, I admit, because I was I was trying to rush to get this done, and I was really excited. So if you're a little bit more careful, maybe follow along with the video, make sure you separate the screws and whatnot beforehand. You could probably easily get this done in an hour. It only took me an hour and a half because I'm an idiot. Anyway, we're all together. I even assembled the little round rotator thingy. I don't even know what to call that. Anyway, we're all together. I thought I'd call out though that this filter is actually a spare. There's one already installed in there, so fantastic. Love that. Anyway, let's take this outside and give it a whirl. Okay, before I go on, I'm just going to preface this with, I think it was Maker's Muse put out a fairly recent video about safety issues with these laser cutters. And absolutely, before you even think about getting one of these cutters, please watch that video. So there's a number of potential issues, and I'm of the opinion as long as you're aware of what the issues are and how to mitigate them, I think these cutters are perfectly safe to use, as long as you keep everything in mind, you know, before, during, and after using them. So in a nutshell, you need to worry about, first and foremost, eye safety, because this is a 5.5 watt laser. Absolutely, if it gets reflected off of whatever material you're cutting, bounces back and hits you in the eye, it can absolutely blind you. And you only get 2 tries, basically, one in each eye. So the safety glasses that it comes with seem, I mean, let me put it this way. They seem to do a decent job in terms of blocking blue light. That's not to say that they're highly effective against a specific wavelength. So really, realistically, I would actually splurge for like the $30 safety glasses that you can find online that are a bit better quality than this and actually certified. There's no documentation on these glasses exactly what wavelength they block, etc., how much transmittance they have at that wavelength. These are important things, especially if you want to keep using your eyes. So I would actually, these are okay for like setting it up and testing it, but I really wouldn't trust my eyes for these guys. I would actually suggest buying a separate pair of like nicer, $30+ laser safety glasses that are rated for, I believe this is 4 or 5 nanometers. So that's the first issue. Second issue is like fire safety, clearly, because you're cutting things. Now there is a flame sensor. They call it a flame sensor. It's basically like a light sensor, and I actually had to disable it, turn it down, in order to get this to work outside, thus defeating the whole point of the flame sensor. So yeah, when you're using a machine like this, always watch it basically while it's cutting. Do not walk away. Do not leave a long job running and then just leave it there and assume it's going to be all right. And at the first sign of fire, hit the power button. Just kill it. Because yeah, it's not worth burning wherever you're around. If you have this indoors, it's not worth burning your house down or anything like that. Third thing is gases. So while this does have, you can see all the way in the back there, that little air filter. While it does have that, it's nowhere near 100% effective. And also, some of the gases that it creates, that type of filter is not going to remove. Namely, if you cut anything with chlorine in it, it'll tend to make gases which interact with the moisture in your lungs to create hydrochloric acid, and that's generally really not good. So basically anything like PVC, you really do not want to be cutting with this, or if you do, make sure as heck that you have really good ventilation. Basically don't trust this onboard ventilation. You want to have it effectively in lab grade fume hood or outside with plenty of cross breeze. But yeah, so those are kind of the 3 main safety things that I think of when I look at a laser-based system like this. And so yeah, so with that out of the way, let's go into the functionality of the laser. I would have liked to have used this for at least a month solid. However, by the time I received this, I am off actually. I'm going to be taking a trip internationally in 2 days' time. So I've had this officially for just over 5 or 6 days. So unfortunately, I've really only been able to put in maybe 2 to 3 hours of burn time with this machine. I would normally review based off of, at least a month for something as complex as this to really get a full understanding of its capability. Unfortunately, I cannot do that as of right now. So 100%, as soon as I get back and I move into my new place, I will set this guy up and run it through its paces even more extensively. So just consider this sort of like a pre-review. So things that I really like about the machine, touchscreen, is the user interface is much better than the Atomstack that I've been using. That has no user interface, in fact, and it requires it to be tethered to a machine. This guy can take micro SD cards, which are fantastic. I really wish they would just bump it up to full-size SD. That's sort of always my big complaint, but for some reason, every 3D printer and or CNC machine and or laser cutter tends to go for micro SD. So whatever. I really like whoever thought of this little slot in the front to put, what this is for setting the height on the laser. So basically, whenever you get something underneath that you want to cut, say I want to cut this piece of cardboard, you drop the laser head, you like loosen it, you use this as like a spacer shim, and then you tighten it, and then when you remove this shim, it sets it to the right height. So it's fantastic, whoever thought to put this little slot so that it lives there. And so you can basically never lose it. That's fantastic. I love that. It's out of the way, but it's always easily accessible whenever you need it. So that is absolutely fantastic. The ventilation system, the little filter thing in the back, actually makes a noticeable difference in terms of the amount of smoke that you generally smell. Now, I'd noted before that ventilation is really important, and for cutting most things, I still would not consider this an indoor unit. Not unless if unless if you have like some sort of external, like strong fan that ventilates outside or something like that. I would not really want to run this inside, even with that fan in the back there running full tilt. It doesn't collect everything. It doesn't pull everything out of the air that it's cutting. It seems to pull like a decent amount. So when I was cutting cardboard, I tested extensively on the Atomstack, and on this guy, the smell was like significantly less of like the burning cardboard smell, but it definitely still had it was definitely noticeable still, but it was significantly less than the Atomstack, which does not have any type of filtration. It just burns and then it just goes up into the air. So it's better, and it's definitely an improvement. For the most part, I usually have that set to like 50 to 75%, bumping it up to 100%. Between like 75 and 100%, I didn't really notice like a significant difference. And so I would just leave it like somewhere around 50 to 75%, just so it's not super noisy. One thing I will note, the motors on these are really quiet compared to the Atomstack. I had the exact same G-code that I put on the SD card that I ran on the Atomstack. I just basically stuck it on this SD card and ran on this machine, the exact same speed, the exact same laser power. And if I turned off the ventilation, this was significantly quieter. The actual mechanics of the motors, I don't know if they're using like silent stepper drivers or something, but it is definitely noticeably quieter. But that's sort of nullified by the fact that if you turn on that fan in the back there, that is easily louder than any of the motors. So it's sort of a moot point. But I just thought it was nice that like the mechanics of it, other than the ventilation fan, are really quiet. So that's generally a good sign in terms of they're pretty efficient. That means they're not, making a lot of extraneous mechanical noise, etc., etc. I love this drag chain. It's a genius decision. I would have kind of liked for them to have a second drag chain on this guy. That would have been nice to have one going along the back there. You would only really have to worry about this hose then, which obviously you couldn't have a drag chain for a hose. Not really, I don't think. But yeah. Definitely having this drag chain in the back, that was awesome. On the Atomstack, it's just a bundle of wires that just hangs about. So not great on that, but definitely on here, it makes just a lot tidier. So I really like that. That's absolutely fantastic. The only thing that I really, really did not care for was the power supply. Comes with one of these like wall wart adapters. The cord is about 3 feet. So you have to be within 3 feet of a wall outlet to use this machine, which is it's almost pitifully short. So you're going to need some sort of extension cable or power strip or something. Jeez. Just make the cord 6 feet. Come on. I kind of feel like what they ended up doing is the engineering on this machine is actually really good. By the time they got to the power supply, it almost sounds like they ran out of budget, and so they just had to get kind of the cheapest, shortest lead power supply they could find. I really like the Atomstack's adapter, which is actually the laptop style. So it has the power brick, a nice long cord with like a power switch on it, and then it has a separate AC cord that plugs in like a laptop style cord with the ground plug and everything. That is the right way to do it. This power adapter, it's definitely, the rating is beefy enough. It's 12 volts at 4 amps, so it's not like it's electrically puny, but just the cord is so short, and if it had a receptacle for like a figure 8 lead so that you could plug in an extension, that would just be better than having it plugged straight into an outlet. And it's pretty beefy, so when you get it in an outlet, it tends to block quite a bit of room around it too. So I'm not too happy about the power supply, but it does use a standard, like very common 5, I think this is 5mm or something like that, power, DC jack. So I could easily replace this, or I could splice a longer wire on here. It's not the end of the world, and I actually believe that the rating for the Atomstack is the same as this, so I could probably actually use the exact same cord on here. So it's not a big deal for me, but yeah, just be aware of that. Yeah, the other thing that was sort of hit or miss on the touchscreen, so the brightness seems to be pretty decent. Even when you're wearing these glasses, you can still kind of, for the most part, see everything. The progress bar that shows you how much like percentage it's gone through and cut of your current job. The text is white on like a gray background. That is incredibly difficult to see with the glasses on. It's almost impossible to see with the glasses on. If you take off the glasses and risk frying your eyeballs, you can just about see it. It's still difficult to see in that case too, especially if you're out in bright sunlight. So yeah, if they had just made that specific text like black, because it's the progress bar itself is yellow, like kind of like a banana yellow color, and the unfilled portion of the progress bar is like a light gray, and the text is all white. So it's just some aesthetics. I think maybe they try to make it look like cooler or more aesthetic. Just put the black text on there, make it high contrast, especially since you are going to be wearing tinted glasses for like eye protection and whatnot. So that would just make it a lot better on me. For the pretty much everything else in the UI, that's the only thing that was like difficult to see. The rest of using the UI, I didn't have any problems with while using it while the goggles were on. So I think that's really the only complaint that I have software side. I do like that they give you the option of manual or automatic mode, and all that really means is automatic mode will home first, and it references everything to this top bottom left corner basically. And I'm used to the Atomstack sort of way that had no homing sensors or anything, so you just sort of move the laser head where you want, and that's where it starts referencing the cut from. I like it that way, and so if you select the manual mode, that's how it works. It does not home. It just starts wherever you move the laser head, it'll start cutting from that point. And I like doing that because oftentimes I'll like cut out of the same sheet of cardboard, and so I won't necessarily know where I want to cut till I actually want to start cutting. So I can just move the laser head away from any of the past cuts that I've produced, and work just fine for that. There are two things for engraving and cutting. So what I found is, so I know it's a little weird. I have this thick piece of, it's like double ply, pretty beefy cardboard, and I couldn't find any of the plywood when I did this cut, so I just engraved on cardboard. Which, if you know, you don't engrave on cardboard; you just burn cardboard. There you go. So yeah, you can see it burnt away. I mean, I could stick my finger in there if I really wanted to, but you can see all the lines are like super crisp. Now this took about almost exactly half an hour to engrave, which is significant. It's not very small though. It's like pretty decently largish, but the resolution that I cut out is absolutely fantastic. So this is actually really good quality engraving. If I did this on wood, it would look even more fantastic, but I was surprised how well it handled it with cardboard. Yeah, when you engrave cardboard, like I said, you just burn through it. So these are just like charred remains. So if I give it a smell, it would smell like burnt cardboard, which it distinctly does still smell like burnt cardboard. The other thing was I ran some tests. So the Atomstack that I had could barely cut through. I think some of this testing was with the Atomstack, and I had to set the laser like super high, and it was burning straight through the wood and like singeing a lot of the, sorry, not wood, cardboard. It was singeing it. The cuts weren't clean. Like, it took like a ridiculous number of passes. I think like upwards of like 15, 20 passes to like get all the way through. It wasn't great. And so with this machine, it cut really well. Like, I think maybe it could have used like 1 or 2 more passes. I think I set this to, it was somewhere around like 10 passes I end up doing, maybe a little less. I think like 8 or 9, and it made it pretty much all the way through, and it's pretty clean. If I focus. There we go. You can see the cut for the most part, except for like the very bottom layer, is super clean. There is a little bit of sooting, but that means that the burning was like pretty clean and thorough. So yeah, nice crisp edges like all the way through, except for on that very bottom layer. Like I said, if I did like 1 or 2 extra passes, I'm absolutely sure this would have cut solid through here. So yeah, really happy with that. That means that and I didn't mess around with the head adjustment, so that means the focal spot is pretty wide on this, so you can cut pretty wide materials. So less important with cardboard, more important with engraving or cutting like thicker woods. But yeah, you can see that. That's fantastic. So very happy with that. The Atomstack would not be able to cut this like large shape out without like setting the cardboard on fire completely. So very happy with that. As for like the accuracy, I cut this out of a thinner cardboard that's only like single ply. We go back here, and you can see here, this lattice work was actually the like the paper Japanese lamp that the wood and paper one that I cut out for a previous project. I just took one of the top designs and cut it out of cardboard instead, and this came out like absolutely fantastic. This cut out in, I think, only 1 or 2 passes. And you can just see like the level of detail, like all the corners are like super sharp. And this was running at 1,000 millimeters per second, I believe it was, something like that. No, 1,000 millimeters per minute. 1,000 millimeters per second would be ridiculously fast. But yeah, it ran like at a decent speed, and you can see just how sharp everything is. And you can see even the parts that it cut out, it left a little bit of sooting on the edges, but like it did not like majorly set any of the pieces on fire or anything, which is pretty impressive. That means it was moving fast enough, and the laser power was like sufficiently strong to cut it in like as fewest number of passes as possible. So very happy with that. A lot of the pieces are like super crisp, totally usable if you wanted to make things out of cardboard. But yeah, this is such an interesting piece for me to look at, especially when you start turning on its side and you see it's like 3-dimensional, and that's just regular old cardboard. That's insane. This little defect here, I use the same sheet of cardboard to cut other things, so this is just something that I cut on the back side. And I cut the same thing out of some of the spare wood that I had. So this comes with this really thin, this must only be like 1 millimeter, maybe like 1.5, maybe 2. It's super thin. It's basically like plywood. And it came with little sheets of those. And so I decided to cut the same exact pattern, but using this plywood. This didn't come out quite as clean. You can see the bottom layer could have used maybe 1 or 2 more passes to get through, or it could have been something with the glue. Sometimes this like plywood type material, you'll get like harder spots where like I don't know, the consistency of the glue or the wood is a little bit tougher to cut through. I've noticed this on the Atomstack too. It's nothing really to do with the laser cutter, it has to do with the cheapness of the wood. But yeah, it's just ignoring the bottom part. The top is absolutely crisp. Not a lot of like usually when you cut something, if you like turn the laser power too high or put it too slow, you'll get like a lot of soot all around the cut. And you'll notice like this is a little bit worse. On the right is a little bit worse. There's some like kind of nastier cuts. But if you set your laser speed quick enough and your power to a reasonable level and don't like linger too long, I've noticed on this laser cutter in particular, having the fan on 100% or at least 75% on cutting this plywood made like the sooting and the streaking on the wood a lot less noticeable on this. So the fan actually did make a difference. The edges aren't super burnt either. They're pretty clean. So in general, this machine seems to cut a lot cleaner than the Atomstack. I'm actually pretty happy about that. It's an interesting thing. It'll make post-processing a lot easier in general. The Atomstack, I had to put blue painter's tape over like pretty much everything that I cut. Otherwise, it would be the top surface would be covered in like a lot of soot, and it would be hard to clean off. It doesn't seem all strictly that necessary for this machine. Let's just do a stack up between the cardboard and the wood. Yeah, it's beautiful. Lines up perfectly. And so yeah, I just wanted to see. So that was, I believe, for this plywood, I had to do like a couple of passes to get through all the way. I think like maybe 2 or 3 passes. So doing just a single pass. So just doing a single pass, I wanted to see how deep it could get into this cardboard. You could see it's almost there. It's like 2/3 of the wood. It's through, and for certain spots where it's short lengths, it actually like did pierce through it in one pass. So definitely for this laser cutter, you generally, if you're going to be cutting like plywood like this, you're going to want the fan on at least 75%, preferably like 100%. For every like millimeter of wood, I would probably give it like 1 to 2 passes. Probably, just to be safe, 2 passes per every millimeter. And depending on how thick the wood is, you might have to finagle with the height adjustment on here, which by the way is actually really easy to do. It's just a single set screw, and then you can move the head up and down freely. I kind of like the ones where some models have you sort of like a microscope where you turn it up or down, and then when you stop touching the knob, it just remains in that position. I think that would be kind of ideal for like a laser cutter like this, for getting like fine-tuned settings. But I mean, this works just fine enough. You just loosen it up, down, and then you tighten it, and it's set to go. It's not going to go anywhere. So one other thing that I kind of entirely forgot about this machine, so I'll just show you all the offcuts that I did. Is it doesn't come with any protective layer. Like the Atomstack came with this steel sheet, which, given it's sort of small, but this is really nice because I can cut on this and not have to worry about damaging any surface I put this laser cutter on top of. The Laserman, however, does not come with any sheet like that. Given you could probably find a sheet at a hardware store for pretty cheap, just like any kind of steel sheet or any kind of thin metal will work probably just fine. This laser cutter cannot cut metal. It can etch it slightly, from what I've seen, depending on the type of metal, but it will not make it all the way through. So even like this super thin sheet, this is like really sort of like as thin as like some metal shims, is good enough to protect the surface. So it would have been nice to have seen like in the box, like even, like an 8x11 sheet of steel, just offcut, whatever. Just a little something if they could have provided. They provide a lot of like different accessories and stuff. So, I mean, I don't think that it would have been too expensive to throw like a little sheet of metal in there or something, just to give you something to cut safely on. Especially if you are cutting, like using this on a desk or something. I've seen other people use like scrap wood as like a sacrificial board. I don't like the idea of having a piece of wood underneath the wood that you're cutting that both are flammable. I would prefer just some kind of metal surface, just to catch the beam. So another thing to mention, they do have a tool that you have to download. Well, you don't have to download it. So within Laser Gerbil, you can just save save cuts as like .nc files and put them straight on the SD card, it'll recognize them and it will cut with them. However, if you don't post-process the files, it will take a little longer to cut because it has to do extra calculations when it's loading the file. However, they do provide a tool that you can install, and all it does is it's basically like a post processor. You point it towards your file, and then it adds a little bit of information at the top of the G-code that specifies the maximum, I think like the maximum height and width of the file that you're cutting. And so that tells it, so it can check when it homes the laser, it can check to make sure it's fully within your cut area. If you don't have that bit of information at the beginning of the G-code, I bet you what it has to do is it has to go through the every line of your G-code and then check for like a global maxima value for both X and Y to make sure that it's within your cut area. Because if not, then you get a head crash. If it tries to, for instance, go further than the width, it'll actually hit the end here and it could damage the motor or the belts or whatever. So it does that in order to prevent that from happening. It does that little check. I think this really only affects the automatic mode, but just to be safe, it takes one extra step to have that the file scanned by that program and add that extra line in there. It takes like 10 seconds to do. So if it can save the machine or save a little bit of time from having to do extra number crunching when it first prints, I'm fine doing that as an extra step in my file generation. I did really want to try out this guy, which is like the it'll allow you to cut like mugs and like glass containers, round containers, and that kind of stuff. I haven't had the time to, and also like all my mugs are packed away, so I'm definitely going to be testing this out. It's all it is basically just a small stepper motor mounted to like a timing belt and two like rubberized rods, so you could just put something round on here. Just imagine this is like a jar or something, and it will allow you to unplug one of the motors on the side of the case here, and you plug this in its place. In terms of value, the Atomstack, I believe when I got it, was like a $400+ machine. This guy, last I checked, is a little over $300, and it has significantly more features. And yeah, so I think this is sort of a no-brainer. If you wanted to get into laser cutting, the Laserman has like a significant step up in my opinion because it has a full touchscreen user interface and the filtration system and just build quality in general on this. I am generally preferring it over the Atomstack that I've been using. Now, the only thing is some of the screen printing on this axis, for instance, it's a little bit, here, let me just, yeah, it's a little bit spotty, not so great. On the other axis, it's perfectly fine, so I don't know what happened there. And some of the pieces came a little bit dinged up through the anodization. It doesn't affect functionality, and anyway, I'm going to be pretty rough with this machine in general using it. I'm not worried aesthetically if it looks kind of dinged up, so that didn't really bother me. It's a little weird what's going on with this though, so maybe they have some QC issues or whatever. I think, like I'd mentioned before, the manual is absolutely fantastic. They do have, like, additionally on their YouTube channel, video assembly instructions that look, I watched a few of them before I started putting this together, and they look fantastic. Very simple to follow along with. The only thing is, I really wish that they had labeled, like, all the screws with what their length and diameter is, so that when they referenced it in the manual, you would know exactly what screw. Yeah, definitely for like about a $300 machine, this is, I think, a fantastic value. So if you did want to get into laser cutting on the cheap, this is definitely a viable way to get into it, having some of the benefits that like 3D printers already enjoy, with like having the more advanced graphical user interface, the SD card. I hadn't even mentioned, actually, this has Wi-Fi. I was not able to test that out as of the time of filming. I 100%, when I get this set up in my new lab, I will be running this on Wi-Fi likely. But it's always really nice to have the SD card to fall back on. Oh yeah, one other thing. This is important. can I please ask Flying Bear to adjust the cut? So if I go down here, so if we go down here, there's the slot for the SD card. There's a bit of a gap in the case, and the first time I went to insert the SD card, I inserted it not into the slot for the cut, but between the slot and the case, and it almost fell all the way inside the case. So please, for the love of God, make that cut a little tighter tolerance or something, or put like a little piece of tape or something, or foam, so that you can't slide this. If you don't get this SD card lined up correctly, you can actually push it all the way into the case and it'll fall inside, and then you have to take this apart. You have to unscrew it to get to your SD card then. So that's not good in my opinion. Oh, that's a common issue actually with more than one model of 3D printer as well. So all that would take to fix is, yeah, just block off like the top of the hole, because the SD card slot is sort of, you can imagine like this, and there's a gap between the case and it, so if you slide the card in above instead of into the slot, it'll just fall in there, and that's a pain in the butt to get out. Luckily, I was able to fish it out with a toothpick. But yeah, that's just got to be careful when you're inserting it, I guess. I'm probably going to end up opening this to, number one, I want to see the insides of this, and I will probably post like a follow-up community post with some pics of this guy, as well as I'll put a little bit of foam there to prevent me from, future stupid me, from sticking SD cards not into the slot, but into the case. Where the gap exists. I had a lot of fun with this guy so far. I want to put a lot more time into this, and I 100% will when I get back from vacation, but I wanted to get this video out as soon as possible. So once again, huge thanks to Flying Bear for sending this guy in for review. I definitely had a lot of fun, and I can see myself using this a lot more in the future. Anyway, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.